Today on Along for the Ride, we saw EPiC back on February 18th for the first time. Now we're into April. We saw the movie again. She was definitely like scribbling next to me these questions. Only the questions she had from the first viewing did she give me in advance because we had already talked about them. So these questions I'm actually getting for the first time. Welcome to the Mystery Train Studios. This is Along for the Ride, where one lifelong Elvis fan
and his curious bride
share the music, the movies, and the stories behind them. Today we're picking up where our conversation about EPiC, Elvis Presley in concert, left off in our first episode.
I'd always thought that Elvis had like pretty quote-unquote church-centered sort of upbringing. Again, as an uninformed person, when I saw him wearing a bra on his head while singing in EPiC, of course I found it funny, so I'm not being critical of it. But that was confusing. And then there was a scene where I think he was picking up underwear someone threw at him. That was confusing to me. And then there was also the scene where he was doing certain things with a microphone and he said, now we're going to go get dirty. What kind of persona did Elvis really have on stage? Was that reflective of a sense of humor, or was there something more deep-seated with some of those?
The bra on his head thing, just to take that one. I think that's really his onstage humor. Or even backstage humor, too, really. It looked like, to me, that he was trying to make one of the Sweet Inspirations laugh. You can see him do that a couple times in the movie, actually. He seemed to enjoy trying to get them to laugh, and then they're trying not to laugh because they know what he's trying to do. So I think that's what's happening with that one. And then with the song that you were talking about that he said, we're going to get dirty, that's the song Polk Salad Annie. It was actually a Tony Joe White song. It was known as a swamp rock song. It's not dirty like in a lyrical sense, but it's considered like almost like a dirty blues, or it's just the sound. The sound is
It's
dirty.
the sound that's dirty.
Yeah. It's more of, it's just that swampy sound. So that low bass that we hear from Jared Schiff.
Okay.
And then as far as the microphone thing on Polk Salad Annie, so that sequence is edited, which I'm sure you could tell, just obviously it's not just one complete sequence. It's edited from, I would say, at least 2 rehearsals and then at least 3 live shows. So they created this one long piece out of it. As far as the editing goes, it was definitely brilliant how they did that. But the piece with the microphone wasn't the same live show as when he said we're going to get dirty.
Okay.
In a way, you shouldn't necessarily connect him saying we're going to get dirty to him putting the microphone in his mouth.
Okay.
That microphone in his mouth thing, for whatever reason, he did that a few times during that era.
Okay. There was another scene, and I don't remember. It was definitely a practice scene, a backstage practice scene, where Elvis specifically mentioned morphine and hish hash and faked smoking, apparently a joint.
Yes, so that was also during Polk Salad Annie, and honestly, I was surprised that they put that in there. I saw a fan reference somewhere that it had already been released. I didn't believe it, but I went back to my recording, and sure enough, I did indeed have a recording of him saying this. I guess he was clowning around for the cameras. I mean, obviously, if the cameras are on you, you must have some sense that this might be released. Definitely an unusual moment. And maybe they left it in for this movie as a nod towards his abuse of prescription medication. Not so much as far as I know, the hish hash. But morphine, unfortunately, is one of the medications that he abused over the years. So maybe that's why they chose to put that. I was surprised by it. It wasn't fake, though.
Right.
Like, it was indeed what he said and did. So it's a documentary. I guess they have the right to show what he did. I don't have an objection to it, but I was surprised.
Well, you raise a good point. That might have been EPic's nod to his particular choices.
Right.
But they didn't focus on that aspect of his life. They didn't center on it, which I also thought was good and positive. They focused on the music and Elvis telling his own story.
Right.
So your perspective was interesting, is what I'm saying, as a particular lens on how EPiC was addressing the drugs through Elvis's voice.
Right, and that's that's just my opinion, obviously.
But it makes sense.
As to perhaps why they would have done that.
Polk Salad Annie. they when they were playing that song and talking about the lyrics, her mom was on a chain gang. They were showing a picture, black and white photo of a male, a female, and a child.
Yes.
Was that Elvis as
Yes.
a baby with his mother and father?
That's right.
Were they implying that he was that poor? Was that the
Yes.
implication there?
Yes, definitely. He was very poor growing up, and his father was actually in jail for a period of time due to forging a check. It was interesting that they used Polk Salad Annie in that way, 'cause I had never made that connection. That piece of Polk Salad, I never really connected it to Elvis's story. You certainly could make that connection, so I thought it was interesting that they did that.
And I wondered if Elvis knew Sally. Like, was she a real? Because he seems very passionate about that song, like when he sings it and kind of leading up to it.
Right.
So I wonder in the back of my mind, now I know he didn't write it, but I wonder in the back of my mind, did he know a Sally, a Polk Salad?
So you're saying, did he know someone like that?
Yes.
Like someone like that in the story? It's very possible. I mean, not that I've ever heard growing up like he did. There certainly may have been a Polk Salad Annie type person in his childhood. I think the song just had like a really cool feel to it. I think that he loved that aspect of it too. That song came out by Tony Joe White in 1969. Even that year in Elvis's August 1969 engagement, he doesn't sing the song, but he's already referencing it.
Oh, okay.
Like he makes like a little comment and he'll say like, that's Polk Salad. Like he says it. And then he comes back in February as part of his show now.
Okay. Now these are a little more specific, so you may or may not recall.
All right. I'll do the best I can.
If you don't, that's fine. In one of the clips, Elvis was, I think, in his military uniform, and he was saying something like he would love to come back here. Where was here? Where was he?
So that was in Germany. So what he was saying was he would like to come back at some point and entertain them because he didn't do that. So the whole time he was in the army, he never performed. So he didn't do any concerts in Germany or anywhere else in Europe while he was there. The only recordings he did was right before he left the United States. He did do recordings in June of 1958 while on weekend leave. He made a few just so they'd have them in the vault for use while he was gone. That August, his mother passed away. And then in September, he shipped to Germany.
They talked a little bit about I Like Elvis, like pins and other merchandise. Why was it I Like Elvis? Was love too odd a word back then?
I think there were probably I Love Elvis buttons back then too. I think the I Like Elvis thing was a spinoff of I Like Ike, which would have been the presidential campaign going on at that time. 1956, I believe, was Eisenhower campaigning, and I think I Like Ike was one of the buttons. So it was probably a takeoff on I Like Ike.
That makes sense. And then there was, in that same thread, there was someone who was asking Elvis, do you get money off the person that sells the I Hate Elvis buttons as well? So that was odd.
So that person was Tom Parker, because he created both the I Like Elvis and the I Hate Elvis buttons, thinking that...
He created them?
Right. His organization made them so that they could sell them such that you're getting profits from both sides. So you're getting people that don't like Elvis and people that do like Elvis. You're getting their money either way.
Okay. That's interesting.
Now, as obvious from that interview, Elvis didn't seem to have any knowledge of it. I thought it was funny in that interview that the reporter tried not to say it. Like they said, I like Elvis buttons, and then the other buttons, and Elvis kind of interrupted, and he goes, you mean those I Hate Elvis buttons? So I thought that was funny.
There was a disturbing portion of the movie EPiC, and it involved Elvis and some very weird-looking dog. What was that?
You mentioned you have not seen any of Elvis's movies. Well, one of them is called Live a Little, Love a Little. As Elvis movies go, it's actually not horrible, but there's a dream sequence in it in which a dog arrives and talks to Elvis. That's what you saw was the dream sequence. It's set to the song The Edge of Reality, which is a song I actually love, but that's what's going on there. It's a sequence out of a movie that I have not yet subjected you to. Parts of that movie are actually pretty good for an Elvis movie. Like it, well, in the sense that it varies somewhat from the formula. It's a little different.
It looked very different from anything I'd witnessed.
The talking dog, but that's a dream sequence. So the whole movie isn't like that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, that helps a little bit because it seemed like there was a lot of airtime for the dog in EPiC, so I was just curious.
I think they were using it as an example of just how far off the rails his movies had become by that time.
The other thing I noticed is during, I guess, a little later in his career after he'd been successful, he started wearing jumpsuits and capes. What was that about?
The jumpsuits originally came from his love of karate, which they didn't really get into in the movie.
Okay.
But that's where the jumpsuits came from. He originally started as a karate outfit. His early stage attire from 1969 was even more heavily based on the karate
Okay.
suits. Over time, that kind of evolved into the jumpsuit. As far as the capes, as a child, Elvis was a big fan of the character Captain Marvel Jr., which was a comic book character. Elvis being who he was, he ended up updating his outfit to include that kind of look. It's just stage attire. Like it's part of his showmanship, and it's just to put on a show for people. And so the flashy costumes, and they became more and more flashy over the years, and sometimes to a detriment where it seemed more effort was put into the costume than to what he was doing.
It didn't seem like he wore the same jumpsuit to the same place. So, for example, if he went to Hampton, just as an example, it seemed like he had a Hampton jumpsuit. So I don't know, did he have like a specific outfit that he had for each location? And then did you ever see him in the same thing twice in two different places, I guess is really my question.
Yes, he did. He did wear the same jumpsuits more than once in different locations. Now, I think if he was doing two shows at the same place, then he would probably wear a different one. Like if there was a afternoon show in Hampton Roads, for example, and then the evening show, it would have been two different jumpsuits. Probably for multiple reasons. One, so that he wasn't wearing the same thing, and then two, to have it cleaned or whatever.
Well, they got ripped sometimes too by fans.
Yeah.
Like we saw that in the movie. There was one in particular where he walked out into the crowd and you could see like beads or something had been just torn off. And so did he do that often? Walk out into the crowd like that? Like as much as he did in that one scene?
As far as I know, and I have not seen anything around this, so as far as I know, he did it twice. It was that time and then a previous time during the same Vegas engagement. EPiC might have used footage from both. As far as I know, he did it twice. Parker hated the idea. Elvis did it anyway, but I think there were some security concerns after that. Unfortunately, I don't know that Elvis was ever as close to his audience again as he was in that August 1970 engagement. And that's a whole other topic that, again, would take a long time to get into. But for a security concern, he was never that close again, which is unfortunate because he seemed to love it.
He did seem to love it. He even joked about it, if I recall, when he got back up on stage and said, "I'm never doing that again."
Right.
Something like. But he did seem to love it. He seemed energized by it.
Yeah.
Do you know who picked out his wardrobe? Like who designed it and then chose it?
The primary designer of most of his like jumpsuits and stuff from the era we were watching was a man named Bill Ballou, and he worked with Elvis on I'm not going to say on every single one, but he did work with Elvis on some of the designs. So some of it was inspired by things Elvis would have told him. And was there another part to that question? I'm sorry.
Who chose like which outfit he was wearing where?
And that's an interesting question. I don't know that I have ever seen that information. When Elvis is at Hampton Roads, does he have 6 jumpsuits with him and he walks up and goes, "Well, today I'm going to wear this blue jumpsuit"? I think that's how it worked, but I can't definitively tell you that's how it worked. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess it's possible that he had someone assign that duty, like Charlie Hodge, who was the stage manager and played guitar. But you'll see him in a lot of Elvis things. Maybe he did it. I don't know. It makes sense to me that Elvis is getting ready to get dressed. He would just look at it, pick out what he wanted.
There was a scene in EPiC where there was like a rolling wardrobe thing that did have a number of jumpsuits on it.
Right.
So that's what made me think about it. And you brought up Charlie. I'm glad you brought up Charlie.
Oh, Charlie.
There's a lot of footage in EPiC that included what appeared to be the same drummer, the same guitar player. How long were they with him? Were they always with him, like when he was touring? Do you know anything about them?
In 1969, for his August Vegas engagement, which was essentially his return to live performances, he formed a new band. The cornerstone of that band was James Burton on electric guitar. That's the guitar player that you see throughout. And he stayed with Elvis until Elvis passed away.
He had a pink guitar.
Yes.
In EPiC.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the drummer was Ronnie Tutt, and also came along at that same time. I believe Burton essentially formed the rest of the band with Elvis's input, of course. Ronnie stayed with him till the end as well, but there was a few concerts for whatever reason he couldn't make it. So a lot of the band from 1969 stayed with him. So a few of them switched out. There was a different piano player that switched out a couple of times. There was the rhythm guitar stayed with him all the way through. The Sweet Inspirations background vocalists, they stayed with him. They were very loyal to him. Trying to think what other... Oh, and then bass, Jerry Schiff. So on bass, Jerry did leave the band for a while, and then he came back. So he left for a couple of years. It seemed like Elvis missed him, and eventually they were able to get him back.
You can see how the people that had played with him a long time could just read him.
Right.
Like he would have a certain look or certain gesture or certain body language, and they would know what he was conveying, not only in the practices, but also on stage. So I just thought that was interesting, which made me ask the question, how long had they been together?
Right.
So did he play only at the International in Vegas, or did he play at other hotels in Vegas?
During the 1969 through 1976 time period, he only played at the International, which eventually was bought by the Hilton, so it became the Hilton, but it was the same. It was the same hotel. Now, in the 1950s, Parker took him to Vegas. It was one of the few misfires of that period. He took him to a New Frontier hotel. It was basically a bunch of old people. No offense to old people. Old people in the 1950s, they didn't really get much out of Elvis. The shows didn't go that well. So when Elvis returned in 1969, there was some trepidation on his part that the same kind of thing would happen. But of course it didn't, because the audience was older. Plus they came to see him. In this case, I mean, by this point, he was a legend, really.
So then he also, and I might be confused by his commentary, but I know in EPiC Elvis was talking about a memory from when he was 2 years old. And again, I could be just confused, but I thought he was saying he was in some talent show at the age of 2. And then that same day he got whipped when he went home by his mama for something he did. Was he 2? Was I just confused by the commentary?
Yeah, he wasn't 2. I want to say he was like 8 or even maybe even 12. It was October 3rd, 1945. So he would have been 10 years old.
Okay.
So I was wrong on both counts. What I don't know is what Elvis says in EPiC.
Okay.
So it's possible Elvis throws out the wrong age because he didn't have everything he did memorized.
Sure.
Right? So he may have said a different number than 10. Or he may have said 10. I don't know. He won 5th place, at least according to the Elvis Day by Day book. And the reason he was whipped is he got on one of the more dangerous rides. So his mom wasn't happy about that. She was very protective of him.
So he was at like a carnival or something?
Yeah, it was a fair.
Well, we'll have to rewatch that clip, particularly when EPiC comes out for home viewing, because I know he said something about 2 years old, and I might be combining the talent show with some other comment he was making.
But yeah, it'll definitely be nice to watch it at home and be able to like pause it and really take more of it in.
Because some of my questions are illegible, unfortunately, from last night. So
Okay.
I'm going to have to watch the movie again. I believe it was the Ed Sullivan Show, and he was doing Hound Dog. Is that right? He was on the Ed Sullivan doing Hound Dog, singing that song?
I believe the clip they showed was from Ed Sullivan for
Okay.
Hound Dog, yes. He did that on just about on many shows, but yeah, I believe that was Ed Sullivan that they showed.
So they showed that, and
Yes.
then in EPiC they cut to a concert, and Hound Dog was really sped up, like from the Ed Sullivan Show. Did he speed it up just in general, like that became his concert version, or he just that particular concert he chose to speed it up?
During that engagement, that's how he was singing the song, was at that speed. So the recordings we have of Hound Dog from that particular August 1970 Vegas engagement, that's the speed he was recording it. He was singing it. So in August of 1969, his first engagement at the International Hotel, they didn't sing it quite that fast, and it was still faster than it would have been on the Sullivan Show. When he brought the new band together, they had asked him if he wanted to recreate his 1950s sound and try to basically make the live show sound like that. And he said no, that he wasn't going to try to stick to it the way the recordings were back then. And then, of course, over time, I think Elvis got bored with Hound Dog and a few of the others, and I think he did them to make the audience happy. I don't think they made him very happy, so unfortunately you can kind of tell sometimes he's getting them out of the way. And it's maybe not so bad in 1970, but as you experience like later Elvis, the difference between like hearing Hound Dog versus like say My Way, as far as his commitment to the song is huge.
One of the things I was curious about too was, and I don't know which concert it was, but in EPiC, there's a scene, at least one concert venue, where he's reading off of a paper. And then it seemed like he was actually reading kind of jokingly like announcements or something. But then there was another scene, and I'm not sure it was the same concert, where he acknowledged, hey, we don't know this song.
Right.
So this is the first time we're doing it. Do you recall if that was the same concert or if those were two different concerts?
That was two different concerts. So the one about where he was joking about with the following names,
Yes,
that one was August of 1970 in Las Vegas. And then the other one is they're introducing the song Burning Love for the first time. He had just recorded it. It was not even out yet.
Oh, okay.
He was introducing that one for the first time, and he was reading the lyrics. I think Elvis often had trouble with songs that had a lot of lyrics, especially if they were fast. You'll see him reading Burning Love. There's other songs over the years you'll see him reading, or some of his TV specials. If you look closely, you'll see cue cards being held so he can see the lyrics of different songs. It was just something he struggled with. Did I answer so that concert, I didn't fully answer the question. That concert where he was reading the lyrics to Burning Love was Greensboro, North Carolina, 1972. So it would have been April of 1972.
So on that same song, I was very taken aback that there's a higher note that's hit by a backup singer who's a male. You know which note I'm talking about?
I mean, I don't know musically which note it is,
But
because I'm not that musical. But yeah, there's a part near the end where one of the members of the Stamps Quartet is hitting a very high note.
Were you surprised to find out that was a male? Like the first, like had you listened to the song and then kind of figured out which backup singer it was, or?
On that particular song, for whatever reason, it didn't strike me as a female. Now, I did have a similar reaction to a whole other song from 1977 that I won't even get into now that I thought was a female. But for Burning Love, I didn't think the high note was a female.
I mean, I was impressed. I was impressed.
It's very high.
It's a very high note. And then I think even Elvis kind of dialed back the music and everything just so he could hit the high note.
Right.
Without any other backup.
And part of it is Elvis joking with the, because Burning Love, the studio recording, it fades out at the end. There's really no end to Burning Love. It just fades out. Elvis was, you hear him in EPiC saying, well, how are we going to fade it on stage? And then someone says, well, it's like Patch It Up, which is a song they had done a couple years earlier. So some of it, you see Elvis twisting his hand as if he's turning the dial down. You know, he's fading.
There was also a scene in EPiC where there was a very young girl. She appeared to be sick, and Elvis was in his trailer, I guess, preparing for the show. And she went back and, you know, spent some time with him. And I have heard and read that Elvis had a big heart and tried to really help people. And do you think they used just that one clip as representative of more? In other words, why didn't they put more of that kind of thing in there? More of that character trait of his, where he seemed to be a servant to a lot of people and try to bless a lot of people with his fame, fortune, money.
Well, some of it is kind of what we were talking about before, is having the footage. Is there footage that they can show that conveys that? Is there audio from Elvis that can convey that? They used her as a symbol of that, of his compassion for people. And actually, I knew you would key in on her, but I forgot to. I wanted to look up more info on her, but she unfortunately passed away just about 4 months after that. Apparently, she met Elvis one more time. What we're looking at is April of 1972, and she apparently passed away in August of 1972. She was a big fan.
That was sad. You could tell on her face how special that moment was.
Oh yeah. We're just about out of time again. My bride still has a lot of questions in her little notebook here. She's definitely keeping me on my toes. So until next time, if there is a next time, may God bless you.
Thank y'all for joining me on this ride along.